Good evening, everyone. Welcome along to PSGL F2. We are here tonight for season number 33. It is F2. It is round number 8 of the championship as we take in the Mexican Grand Prix from, of course, the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. My name is James Head, as you can tell, and I'm going to be taking to the stream, of course, as always, on this fine Monday afternoon, Monday evening now, here in the northeast of England. As you can tell, it is sunny outside, which is good. Joining me in the comment box, as always, it is Mr. Connell Moore. Connell, how you doing? If he's here, which I hope he is. Which I don't think he is, unless my internet has gone off or something. We will get to Connell in just a second. Absolutely typical. Absolutely typical. I think something has gone wrong on his end. Yeah, so you're left with me for now, for the next, an hour and a half, I think, at this point. But we will get going, of course, in towards qualifying in around about 3 or 4 minutes' time. I think drivers are just beginning to join up the lobby, as you can probably tell. What we can do, though, is, while Connell fixes his technical glitches on his end, look through the driver's standings, of course. And as the poll has suggested, Jerry Van Bussel is out on top on 65 points. And that is because he has taken not one, not two, not three, but the fabulous 4 of victories so far in Austria, in Bahrain, in Azerbaijan, and in China, of course. Last week he was absolutely dominant once again. Will anybody be able to stop him? I don't know. 65 points. It's a 7-point gap over Lars there in second on 58, who actually came back to some resemblance of his old form from rounds 2 and 3 of the championship. Lars, former championship leader, there in second. Black Box there in third. Of course, he's got challenges, commitments, and once again, he is not here tonight. As you can tell, Connell's internet has just died. He's back with me now. We'll run through the driver's standings in just a second. Black Box there in third on 54, with Devon there in fourth on 53. Johan in fifth on 37. Brad is in sixth on 24. He's got F1 Esports commitments as well. Ari's there in seventh on 24. Then Kieran in eighth on 22. Nuth in ninth on 21. And Will Murdoch in 10th on 18, along with Gabrielle, who picked up a very, very good fourth position last week. In fact, I think he was in third, but I think he got a penalty, if I'm not mistaken. Your bracket, Twist, Marley, and Ryan, the top 15, along with Ron, who I forgot to mention in that as well. Schumacher, Luca Card, Zolzo, Kryptonite, and Renz are the 21 drivers that have scored points so far this season. Connell Moore, we'll try you again. Are you back with me now? He is not. I don't know what is going on. Unless he can't hear me. Hang on. Right, I'll try this. It seems like my mic is not working on Discord. It's coming through on OBS, so you can hear me absolutely fine. But apparently there's a setting change. Give me a second. If I lag, I apologise, but give me a second. I will try and fix this in a jiffy, in a moment. Hopefully everything is okay. I need to check if that is working right. That might be okay. Connell Moore, are you back with me? And can you hear me first and foremost?
I can indeed, yeah. Sorry for the technical issues there. I think there was something going on with Discord.
Oh, my mic disconnected on Discord. That's what was happening. So you couldn't hear me, even though the stream could hear me. Anyways, you're back with me. How on earth are you doing? We're running through the driver's standings there as well. Jerry, the fabulous 4, could he look for the 5-timer tonight?
Yeah, I'm feeling good for tonight. Coming to Mexico, a circuit that really does provide some great racing action. And Jerry Van Bussel, 4 out of the last 4 rounds, he's won every single one of them, and making it 5 for 5. It definitely does seem likely. I mean, he's just been so dominant in this division. Obviously, we know that he wants to be promoted up to PSGL's F1. He thinks he's fast enough, and he's definitely showing that he is fast enough. After obviously having a bit of a struggle at the start of the season, not racing in the first round, scoring 0 points in round 2 and 3 at Singapore and France. But ever since then, just been completely dominant. 7 points in the lead over Lars, and yeah, it's looking very likely that he's going to be able to wrap this championship up quite nicely. So if I had to guess, I think he is going to make it a 5th win tonight.
Yeah, I'm believing that as well. I think he is going to take a lot of beating. Mexico, he said, is one of his favourite tracks as well. Everything seems on par for Jerry Van Bussel coming tonight, but you never know. The plaguing of F1 might just happen. We are going to get into the constructor standings now as well. The drivers are just loading up in towards qualifying. McLaren there on top on 89, Haas there in second on 76, AlphaTauri in third on 70, with Alfa Romeo in fourth on 61, Aston Martin in fifth on 39, Alpine in sixth on 37, Williams in seventh on 32, Ferrari in eighth on 31, Mercedes in ninth on 22, and then Red Bull in 10th on 6 points, as we will embark into a very overcast qualifying session here in Mexico. By the looks of it, we will have a look though at the track map in question around the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. 4.3 kilometers and then 2.6 miles, 17 turns away now with drivers out on track, 3 DRS zones, one down the start finish straight, one down towards turn number 4, both shared by the same DRS detection point, and one down in towards Fernando's corner at turn number 12 in towards the Ferrosol. And looking at the track, obviously we have got overcast conditions, so that could play into the hands of potentially anybody that might opt for a set of mediums, save a tyre at the start of the session, and then go for set of softs a little bit later on.
Yeah, definitely could. Obviously, the overcast conditions does mean it's going to be a little bit colder starting this qualifying session, and also obviously none of the drivers have got out there just yet, so the track is going to be green. So these are going to be the slowest lap times of the session. Overcast also means could be raining towards the end of the qualifying session. You never know; it could come a little bit later on. So maybe the drivers will be hoping to get out of the pit lane as quickly as possible. As we're already seeing, FVR Dara and Krypton are both out of the pit lane already, so they're definitely wanting to get their lap times in quite quickly. A lot of other drivers are also coming out. So yeah, these overcast conditions could definitely mean that rain is inbound. I'm sure these drivers will be hoping that it won't be raining, because obviously, the dry conditions are a lot easier to handle on this F1 game than when you have a lot of water on circuit. But the drivers are getting out there now on their red-walled soft compound tires. And yeah, we're going to see what kind of lap times everyone is going to be able to do. We also have quite a few new drivers for tonight. I think a lot of them are reserves. We have the likes of Juventus Racing's Renz, Yossi. We also have Juventus Racing Javi. We have BB8 down in P17 in McLaren. FVR Dara, I think this is his first race. OP Luke, a kart racing tonight. And yeah, I think QRT Zorzo is also another one. So we have a lot of new faces for tonight. So we could see quite a different race play out than what we're used to here in F2.
Yeah, definitely so. One of the new guys actually is FBR Dara. Evan Dalton mentioned he wants his F3 drivers back. This is one of his F3 drivers on the run down in towards turn 1. The other being, of course, Ty and BB. They were leading the championship first and second in the championship, as we now come through the left-hander of turn 2, through the right-hander of turn number 3 with Dara, the FBR man, of course, 63 points to his name. After phenomenal results, 3 third positions and a win to his name in F3 in the last 4 races. We might put the fight up in the mid-pack certainly here tonight in F2, as Darren now comes through the right-hander, the double right of turn number 6, and then in towards the SA section of turns 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. They will come very quickly indeed, but with these overcast conditions, obviously gives a lot of more of an insight, I think, on the curb, because sometimes you can get blinded coming through this S section by the sun. Looking lovely, I've got to say, Dara, apart from that curb at turn number 11, caught in the inside curb, forced the car off camber, and unfortunately for him, he is invalidated. It's the FER man. We will ride on board with the slap still, see what it would have been from the Irishman's perspective. He's looking quite good still through the Ferrosol, on the run towards the line, in towards Carol Tarda now at 16 and 17. I believe it's going to be a full dry session. Dara is back in the pit lane, absolutely typical, doesn't want to finish off a lap, doesn't want to give me credit at all for riding on board with him in this lap. We'll ride on board as well to see if there's anybody else there on a lap. I think Krypton's just came across line to go first with a 15.7. Kieran's in the lap on the first sector. A time BB is coming through the middle sector there as well, but there's plenty of drivers still to come out on track, including championship leader Jerry Van Bussel, who was yet to come out on track just yet. Xavi has also invalidated, coming through the right-hander now of 15. Former QRT man, I believe, is JR Xavi, now joining Juventus Racing. Devon now going quickest, Krypton in second, but a lot of invalidations early on, Connell.
Yeah, there definitely is, and one of them that I just about noticed was Jerry Van Bussel. He did go out on a lap and invalidated his time, so not good to see from the championship leader, invalidating his first time of the session. We're now seeing a lot more drivers set their first lap times of the qualifying session, with Luca Kart being the fastest out of them all, so 1 minute 15.4 for the F2 driver. But this is a good opportunity for both the F2 and the F3 drivers. In the F2 drivers' case, it's a good chance to score a lot of points today, because obviously they're racing with drivers who are in a division below them. So I think they really should be expecting to beat those guys. But it's also a good opportunity for all of the F3 drivers, because if they can beat some of the F2 guys in qualifying, that will show that they have better pace, and in the race, that'll show they have better racecraft and consistency. We could see them being moved up divisions on the next Formula One game. So I think this is a great opportunity for all of the drivers on the grid tonight. The only bad thing that might happen is obviously none of the F2 drivers will want to be outperformed by the Formula 3 drivers, I should say, as that would definitely be a bit of a bad look. But the divisions are really close. The separation between F3 and F2 is pretty much nothing. In fact, sometimes the F3 pole times are a little bit quicker than the F2 pole times at some circuits. So I think it's a really close grid, even if we have drivers from the other division, and we can already see that. We have Juventus Racing Yazzie up in P3. He's obviously an F3 man. BB8 is in the top 4 with the 15.5. But I think that's because a lot of drivers have not set lap times, so the track limits are going to be a big struggle at this circuit.
Yeah, definitely so. Evan Dalton, by the way, is absolutely furious in the comment section about our title fight is in F2 now. I am furious. He says Renz goes quickest. He is one of the PSGL F2 reserves, of course, full-time reserve here in F2. He goes top now with a 1:15.285. But when the sun does come out, I'm promised that the sun is going to be coming out a little bit later on in the session. That will bring a lot better driving conditions out on track, and it will bring quicker times towards the end of the session as well. FER Dara's just starting up on a lap as well, coming now through the right-hand return number 3 once again. The Irishman, of course, fellow countryman, Mr. Evan Dalton, the PSF3 commentator over there, who is going to be live at 8 o'clock along with F1 a little bit later on. But Dara now in toward the left-hander, return number 4 through the right-hander now, return number 5. Looking quite quick, I've got to say, through that first sector, 28.2 from his perspective, looking not too bad at all. Jerry Van Bussel has just started on a run in towards turn number 1. I'll keep the pole side very much on him in this qualifying lap as well. But Darren now coming through the SA section with the left-hander 9 into the right-hander turn number 10 11, as we saw with Dara get caught in the curb and get sent off camber. That was much neater though, much quicker from Dara in the middle sector. And a 56.1 in the middle sector is exactly where I want to be expecting these drivers to be at around this part of the lap. And Dara's not looking too bad at all. Will Murdoch there on a lap as well. Jerry Van Bussel on a lap as well. But Dara now coming through Peril Tarder at turn 16. And then through the right-hander turn number 17, where Bottas famously crashed in qualifying into the wall on the left-hand side. Dara in the end only goes third, but that's a very neat lap, I've got to say, from the Irishman's perspective. What is Jerry Van Bussel doing in the middle sector? Well, he's a 56 flat in the middle sector. So if Jerry Van Bussel's got anything to go by, he might go quickest with this lap as he comes into the Ferrasol.
Yeah, Jerry Van Bussel, he's always the favourite for pole position as we head into qualifying, and today is no exception. Jerry Van Bussel coming through the final right-hander of the lap time across the line. It's a 1 minute 15 flat, and he goes 2/10 quicker than Juventus Racing Renz, as to be expected from a driver of such high caliber. He goes to provisional pole position with a healthy margin over P2, and Jerry Van Bussel once again looking the favourite for pole position. But it's good to see Renz. Obviously, I actually got confused. We have seen him here before, but he went under the name NLD Renz. But now, obviously, he's joined Juventus Racing and changed his gamer tag because of that. So, yeah, my mistake on getting that mixed up. We have Shizu Aries up there in P3. Good to see from the Aston Martin driver. He's been putting in some pretty consistent results recently. Been getting around those point positions, and now he's up there in P3. So, trying to take advantage of the situation that this F2 lobby finds itself in, and yeah, hopefully he can keep improving upon his time and get up there.
Krypton's just gone up for a spin, coming through the right-hand return number 10. Sorry to cut you off there. Was on board with his lap, and he just got caught on the inside curb, actually coming through turn number 9, and actually he's nearly in to the side of, believe it or not, Jerry Van Bussel, who was the left-hand side of there coming through the S section. Doesn't want to do that, especially to the head steward, but Krypton there in 12th doing a good job at this point. Kieran's as well just started up on a lap 28.4 in the first sector. A little bit disappointing from the ERT man's perspective. Of course, had the weight and the shoulders from that Spanish Grand Prix win a little bit earlier on in the season. Harvey saying as well, Yossi wasn't in F3, he signed up mid-season, as did Xavi, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So the Juventus racing team quite literally taking over, I think, in F2, which is a good thing. It is a good thing. I'll commentate on those guys, of course, on Sundays in the NLR team event, and they've done a fantastic job. I think the third position, if I'm not mistaken, in that team event, as Kieran now comes through the Ferrosol, has to avoid the curb and beat an Alfa Romeo on the right-hand side of him, just trying to negotiate that corner very nicely. Now coming through the right-hander, not on the pace with Kieran, though, on this lap. Fifth position, a 15.3 is well off the pace to what I was expecting. Devon there went second as well. Believe he might be on another run, if I'm not mistaken, or he's just improved on one. But Jerry Van Bussel out on top, Devon in second, Ren's there in third. And to everyone that is voting in the poll that is live there on the channel as well, will Jerry Van Bussel take the fifth win in a row tonight? 60% of you voted yes, including me, and no, 40%. So the 40% of you, I hope you have more faith in the Dutchman than certainly we do by voting yes.
Yeah, definitely. We don't obviously like to see drivers winning so much, but we have to give a credit where credit is due, and Jerry Van Bussel is quite easily one of the, if not the fastest in this F2 division. So he's obviously the favorite for the win, and well, to the 40% of you that think he won't win, would like actually to know who you think would win this Grand Prix, as we have a few contenders. You can see they're at the top with Devon just a tenth behind. Ren's obviously only 2 tenths behind, and he's currently starting his another lap time in this session. But ERT Kieran going to P5, like you mentioned, a bit off the pace. I did see on Twitter, I think he actually posted he set a 14.5 in a practice lobby. So yeah, that is what these drivers are capable of. We know that these guys can go very quick, so who knows, Jerry Van Bussel might find another 5/10 on his 15 flat. But yeah, obviously in the practice lobbies, you're going to be going a lot quicker because you have plenty of time to perfect your lap. And also, you just don't have that pressure that you have in this PSGL F2, the second highest division in the biggest competition on the PlayStation platform. When you come into these qualifying sections, your heart starts racing and palms are sweaty, you know, so you just get that nervous and anxious feeling when you're on those lap times, and that can lead to mistakes and pretty much a lack of pace, and that's might be what we're seeing with ERT Kieran. But Juventus Racing Ren's now to the top of the field. It's a 15 flat. He's gone faster than Jerry Van Bussel by 16 1,000ths of a second. Great job from Ren's. We don't usually see him at the top of the field, but I guess that Juventus Racing name giving him some extra pace, as he is now on provisional pole position with 6 minutes left to go. But Jerry Van Bussel is coming through the stadium section, and he is now getting ready to set another lap time in this session. We'll have to see if he can get into the 1 minute 14 seconds.
Yeah, Davo as well, the FEO man, sliding his way, coming out of Peril, Tyler on the run to the line. He improves up to fifth. A good lap time actually by the Irishman. Found about a tenth of a second in that final sector. But yeah, Jerry Van Bussel, no bias in the commentary box, I promise, but Jerry Van Bussel is now on a lap on the run down in towards the right-hander of turn number 1 with 5.5 minutes to go. PGS Fraser there saying, how is Krypton Knight still here? Yeah, Krypton out of retirement once again. He's came out the retirement home, once again being needed here in PSGL F2 tonight. Currently down in 17th, I believe he's on a lap. Jerry Van Bussel is on lap, but he's 400s down, coming out the first sector in towards turns 4 and 5. We'll run aboard actually with Krypton coming through the final couple of corners. He's one of the furthest on a lap, and the retirement home sets him well, 15.453 behind Xavi there, and behind Nathan Yossi. And I'll tell you what, all the way from Luca Kart down to Krypton, only separated by 300ths of a second, so there's going to be big times to be found. Jerry Van Bussel, though, trying to find big final, big middle sectors. Now comes to the left-hander of turn number 11, but in the end, backs off. Will Murdoch going third. Good lap time from the Mercedes man. He does like this track, does the Brit. I was going to say the Mexican. Don't know why I was going to call Will Murdoch a Mexican. But Jerry Van Bussel in second. Ren's there on top. Ren's from Jerry Van Bussel, from Will Murdoch there in third. And Will Murdoch, who I normally call Lord William Murdoch, definitely not Mexican.
Yeah, so Jerry Van Bussel, he's made, that's 2 lap times that he's now made mistakes on and had to abandon. So he's only set 1 out of the 3 lap times that he's actually gone for. So Jerry Van Bussel may be struggling a little bit with consistency. Obviously, the track limits at this circuit, they're super, super difficult into the first couple of turns. Obviously, turn 2, you want to cut that as much as possible without breaking the track limits. It's the same with the middle sector. Those S sections, really easy to just place your car slightly wide, and that will lead to a track invalidation. So, yeah, it's going to be a big issue. I think we'll see quite a few 3-second time penalties up and down the field. But Jerry Van Bussel, right now, he's got to pick it up because he's not on provisional pole position. He is on the front row in P2, but he's going to have to improve, and probably not only by 16 one-thousandths of a second, because I'm sure Renz has still got a little more in the locker. So, Jerry Van Bussel, he's got a bit of competition today. He needs to pick it up. Definitely not doing as well as he would have hoped as of right now with 2 invalidations. And remember, Jerry Van Bussel did say that this is one of his favorite circuits, if I'm not mistaken, with China being one of his least favorites. I think he mentioned it in the interview last week. So Jerry Van Bussel at a track that is one of his favorites. It's interesting to see that he's really struggling with actually getting clean and fast lap times onto the board. But we have 3 minutes left to go in this session, and every single driver is in the pit lane apart from the Alfa Romeo of QRT Zorzo. So every driver is now in the pit lane. They're getting some new soft compound tires onto their car, making sure that their setups are absolutely perfect, and they will all be going out for one final run as they commence the battle and the shootout for pole position. Right now, it's looking very close at the top from P1 down to P5, just 0.2 of a second separating those top 5. And we also have one F3 driver in there, and that's BB8, who's currently P5. So BB8 and Dara, the 2 F3 drivers, they could be looking to impress the event organizer, the PSGL organizers, and maybe earn themselves a promotion for next season.
Yeah, to be honest, I think Evan Dalton's probably thinking, why on earth have they moved up to F3? But look at them, they're in 5th and 6th position. We have now taken them on board, and they're now ours, and they're 5th and 6th. Currently here in Mexico. Zozo now coming to the final couple of corners. He's going to be the first one to start up on a lap as well. The Queen of Commentary as well for PSGL F1, Jess Games is in the chat saying, I wonder if anyone of the new people to F2 would stop Jerry's winning streak. Well, I think time potentially could. He's there in 5th, 15.2, Darren on a 15.2. Only takes one mistake from the top guys. Renz, Jerry Van Bussel, Will Murdoch on their lap. And then Devon, Tyne, Dara are all let in there, and everyone is let in there with the laps as Zozo now comes through. The left-hander of turn number 3, or the right-hander of turn number 3, now into the left-hander of turn number 4. We'll turn the timing tower off on the left-hand side because he's the first run on the laps, and now comes through the left-hander of 4. 400s up on his time. 28.275 through the first sector as he now comes through the right-hander of the double right of turn number 6. Very neatly done indeed does Zozo as he now comes in toward the left-hander of the SA section at turn number 7 and invalidates too much on the curb, on the outside curb. He has got another crack, luckily, I think, with 56 seconds to go. So Zozo will have another crack, but that is the mistakes that we are talking about. One mistake like that for Renz, Jerry Van Bussel and Will Murdoch, with Zozo doing that through the SA section. That will be very tricky to ride on board with. Jerry Van Bussel's through the end of the first sector nearly. Will Murdoch's toward the end of his lap on an out lap at this stage. Devon, I think, is furthest on. And he's 800 up through the first sector. So 28.2 from the first sector. Middle and final sectors crucial around this track. But Devon, the other Alfa Romeo, in 4th, 15.1 and currently 800 up.
Yeah, he's looking very good on his lap time. If he keeps improving like this, he's got a good chance of getting pole position, which is exactly what he needs with him being 3rd place in the championship. He needs to gain some points on his rival, Jerry Van Bussel. So he now heads into the final sector of the lap time, almost improving by 1/10 of a second. He's looking very quick on this time, but it's a slight slide of the rear end coming out of that last right. He's only got a few more turns to go, just one final braking zone. This will end off his lap time. Let's see what can the Alfa Romeo driver do as Javi goes to P4. Devon goes to P2 by 8/1000ths of a second. Absolutely nothing on the table, but Jerry Van Bussel now goes a 10th quicker than Juventus Racing Renz. One more opportunity, but he spins out of the final turn and breaks his wheel off and retires from the session. Renz, the big error out of the final turn, and he is now out, and it looks like pretty much everyone is done with their lap time. So Jerry Van Bussel, the only driver to get into the 1 minute 14 second lap times, is going to be taking pole position for tonight's Grand Prix.
Oh, I was going to say I wouldn't say so because Keelan was on a flyer through the first sector, but he's just invalidated through the SA section at turn number 9. So that is unfortunate for Kieran. Kryptonite, I think, has backed off as well. Zozo down at the bottom end of the field, I think, is improving by 0.3 of a second in this. 15.5 currently. Now coming to the final couple of corners. Zozo on the run toward the line. And he does improve by 0.1 of a second in the angles. 13th, unlucky for some. But an absolute drama-filled end of qualifying. Kieran, by the way, a 114.8 he would have set. Just saying that, he would have went top in pole position. I think he did cut the corner once or twice there, so we can leave him off with that. But there, down 11, little bit disappointing. Thank you, by the way, Evan, I think, for ending off the poll. 56% of you saying yes. 43% of you, I don't know how the maths has worked out at 99%, 43% of you are saying no. I'm guessing it is 44% and not 43%, as it's showing that on the poll. But a drama-filled end of qualifying there. A lot of invalidations and a lot of drivers not finding the time. Jerry Van Bussel, though, the exception rather than the rule, and he's out on top by 1.5 nearly from Renz in second. Devon there in third, only 0.08 of a second separating them. Renz, of course, had good form early on in the season. Wilmer up there in fourth with Xavi there in fifth. He's actually the best of you guys in all of that. Dara there in sixth. Yossi in seventh. Tyne invalidated. He would have actually went fourth with it that time. Ryan there in ninth. Aries there in 10th. Then Kieran, Krypton, Zozo, Ron, Luke Clark top 15. Johan Nuth for 17 drivers. And then Gabriel, who I think had a qualifying ban. He's there down at the back of the field. We're going to go to the advert and we'll be back in 30 seconds. Apologies about that, the worst possible time for an OBS crash to happen, but there we go, we are back and we are now live and racing here on lap 1. You might have seen what was happening in the early stages just before we were having our absolute breakdown in the commentary box. Everyone's on a set of hard compound tyres. Yossi's had a spin coming through the right hand with turn number 3, but at the end of that one, it's Devon that leads the way from Jerry Van Bussel there in second, Renz there in third, Kieran side by side there with Tyne as well, 9th and 10th position into the Ferris Soul, and Krypton driving it down the inside line in the middle of the pack there as well, trying to now look to the inside line, and again Zolzo on the right hand side tries to get through Peril. Tada on the inside line trying to get the job done. I think he might. Luca caught there, Kryptonite there as well, but in the end Devon leads, Jerry Van Bussel second, and Renz in third, and the big one with that, Connell, is Jerry Van Bussel lost the lead at the start.
Yeah, and it's an absolutely perfect start for Devon. 2 position gains going from P3 to P1. I mean, that is absolutely amazing to see. Didn't even start from the front row of the grid, and he's still in P1. And obviously, Juventus Racing Yossi fell all the way down to P17. There was a big crash between himself and someone else. I'm not too sure who that was involved with, but This is your new, well, your old top three. It's the same top three, except this time Devon is on top, leading this Grand Prix. Absolutely brilliant to see the man who is in contention for the championship battle. He's going to try to steal the victory away from Jerry Van Bussel and stop him from getting his 5th victory in a row. And you can see he's even pulling away a little bit, 7/10 ahead of Jerry Van Bussel. He's got some very good pace as of right now. Meanwhile, the F3 driver of Dara almost outside of the DRS of Javi ahead of him. He needs to push on now to make sure he gets within that DRS, because it is almost lap 3 and the DRS will be enabled on this next lap. That means the first DRS zone will be at the end of the middle sector. So he's safe for now. No one has DRS just yet, but yeah, the drivers definitely need to push. OP Ryan, another one struggling to stay in the DRS. So I think a lot of people have had to push quite hard with their ERS. The only problem with that is this is one of the hardest circuits to recharge your battery at. I think you only gain about 2% per lap if you use absolutely no overtake. So it's going to be a real struggle for the likes of Devon to recharge that battery, because he's currently down at about 20%.
Yeah, he is indeed. You also see there on the back of Gabriel as well. Looks to the inside line, dives to the inside line, actually in towards turn number 4, tries to dummy him. Oh, there's a bit of contact between the JR man and the NLR man, and in the end, the first racing rule is to not make contact with your teammate. They nearly just did there. Gabriel hangs on for 15th. The Aussie there in 16th, doing a good job. Devon there out on top from Jerry Van Bussel there in second. Ren's there in third. The high CPU, by the way, has fixed itself now, which I'm glad to report. And Dara is just within DRS range, but he's just out of DRS range as he comes out of the S section there. Just got the DRS detection point before that. Ari's there on the back of Dara, looking quite good, 0.3 of a second away, and actually nearly rear-ends him into the Ferrosol. Very, very good start though by everyone. You can see the position gains, by the way, on the left-hand side. Ari's has gained 3 positions gained also for Luke Card and Gabriel, 2 for Kieran, 2 for Zolzol, 2 for Johan, as well as Devon, who's out on top, of course, and then 1 for Ryan. But I think we're going to get a 4th position gain here for Ari's. He's absolutely sailed on by Dara. Dara not even enticed by that battle, and now he's 30s into P6. The Shazoo man gets ahead of the FBR man. I wonder where we've seen that before here in PSGL in the Esports Challenge Cup. Certainly Dara there back in 7th, Ari's there in 6th. Good job by the Shazoo man. Dara's going to try and have a comeback, but of course the same DRS detection point is shared, so that, therefore Ari's will remain ahead of Dara, and that is Kieran down the inside line of Ryan with an absolute send of the century from Kieran. Beautiful job, he's through to 8th.
Yeah, Ryan just conceding that position, tried to go for the switchback, but Kieran kept it tight on the apex of turn number 5 there. So good job from Kieran. And he gets up into that P8 position. But yeah, Dara just getting absolutely flown by from Aries, because he's got absolutely no ERS left. Once you get below 10% ERS, you start to lose time on the straights, and Dara is really feeling that now. He's now lost DRS to Aries ahead of him, and he's going to be under big pressure from ERT Kieran behind. So that's what happens when you don't manage your race properly. Once you lose that ERS, probably one of your most valuable resources on this game, you just lose all of your time. And he was behind Aries by about 5/10 only a couple sectors ago. Meanwhile, yeah, Jerry is going for the move on the lead around the outside with the power of DRS, and he gets that move done quite comfortably. Devon not battling too hard, and then ERT Kieran was able to make his way past FVR Dara to try to go for a better exit, but can't make it past the Haas driver. But Jerry back up into the lead of the Grand Prix. Good to see that he's got the pace to overtake Devon, but the DRS is extremely powerful down that pit straight, so I'm sure that definitely helped.
Yeah, it is, and to be honest, Devon, I think, was absolutely wise to the fact that Jerry did not use any DRS, he didn't use any ERS, he's got double the amount of battery than Devon at this stage. But that was done without breaking sweat, without breaking the bank in terms of ERS, without DRS as well. And Devon, all of a sudden, Jerry Van Bussel has just entered that zone that has served him well the last 4 races that he has done, and he has won at every single one. He's now entered that zone mentally and physically, and he looks like he's now beginning to pull away from Devon all of a sudden. 0.7 of a second, 0.8 of a second now through the Ferrosol, because I think actually Devon got caught in the curb there, and now is nearly without DRS here, just within the DRS detection point. He's just about there with the DRS, but Devon in the end has to use up that battery to try and close in on Jerry Van Bussel, but Jerry's just entered that zone. It's not the danger zone, as per Top Gun. But Jerry Van Bossel now in the zone, quite literally, and takes the lead of the race still. Tyner's closing in on Ryan very quickly indeed, and actually closing in on 3 of them as it goes 3 wide in towards turn number 1, and Time PP, the current championship leader on F3, looks the inside line on FBR Dara. Dara's right there or thereabouts, the AlphaTauri on the outside line, just about trying to hold it. These two are fourth, tooth and nail in F3. Luca Cort and Zorzo are having a side-by-side battle as well. That 2x2 Noah's off in towards turn number 4, and Time PP tries to go all the way around the outside of Dara. They leave each other short of room, but Tyne waltzes around the outside line. Zolzo waltzes way off track in the background. Tyne there through and he's into 9. Dara there in 10. Zolzo having an all sorts of carnage going on. There's cars inside of each other here, coming there through the middle sector. The Alpine there trying to get through, I think is, if I'm not mistaken, Johan on the back of Zolzo. Gabrielle and Yossi, and Gabrielle I think has been spun, sorry, Luca Cart, sorry, is the one that is round. So much going on, we can't keep up. Jerry Van Bussel leads. Devon there in second. All of a sudden the gap is closed down once again in front. But my oh my, cars inside of each other. Tyne going around the outside of Dara. Pick that one out.
There you go, a lovely bit of desync as this game likes to throw in every now and again, but you can see that split between the bottom few drivers and the top. That means that you can see a lot of them have started to spread out. Shazoo, Aries, EIC Kieran, OP Ryan, and BB8, none of them have the DRS, and that means it's a lot easier to overtake them if you do get within their DRS, as we're seeing with one Johan, who's going to be going to the inside line into turn number 1, and Gabriel is also going to try around the outside. He makes a double move on Zorzo and Johan. Brilliant from Gabriel, just had the overspeed and was able to get past both of them, and then gets another dose of DRS. And now Zorzo is going to lose another position, low on ERS and without the DRS. It looks like Williams goes a little bit too deep though, as he hits into the side of one Johan, spinning him round, and Kryptonite trying to make his way through the field. He's now down the inside of Zorzo into turn number 6 and 7, and he gets that move done. So quite a bit of chaos there now unfolding in the midfield, and I think that might be the well, close to the end of it, because now pretty much everyone in the midfield is completely spread out and without DRS.
Yeah, definitely so. That Yossi incident, by the way, I'm not sure if that was desync, but whatever it was, he was so late on the brakes, he just tapped in the back end of the Alfa Romeo, sent round. Zozo did lucky, I think, to recover the car. He's only lost a position. I think if Yossi doesn't want to get in the steward's room, I think he lets him through out on track and just has done with it as well. Merck's closing on Renz very quickly down the straight here and towards turn number 1. So Lord William Murdoch the spoon, he's into 3rd. Renz there down into 4th. Shabby there, who people have mentioned, has got good pace there in the chat. He's there in 5th, and he has got good pace at this stage. Back on board further down the field. Ron making a move on Zozo. Gabrielle making a move on Darren towards turn number 1 as well. And actually Zozo tries to hang it all the way around the outside of turn number 1 to try and defend the position and retake it from Ron. But Ron in the end is 14th, Zozo in 15th, and Nuth has retired in the pit lane. I think he had front wing damage, if I'm not mistaken, at the end of lap 1. And I'm not sure if he got caught up maybe in that collision with the likes of Zozo. But in the end, the Ferrari out of the race. He is out of the race, and the German, unfortunately, is down at the back of the field. DNFing is the first DNF of the night, maybe with a sign of things to come. The Jerry Van Bussel leads. Devon there in 2nd. Will Murdoch there in 3rd. A few things has now began to settle down, apart from the man in the retirement home of Kryptonite. He's on the back of Yossi there in 12th and 13th. And Yossi, in the end, probably Juventus Racing, if they are in the party with them, have not told them to give up that position, because Zols are now behind Ron. Why should he give up that position?
Yeah, exactly. All these drivers, obviously, Yossi quite a few positions ahead, and that would definitely cost them quite a bit. And all these drivers are scrapping so hard because the points positions are inside. Obviously, Gabriel leading this DRS train. He's battling for a single point in this race, and every single other driver behind him, all the way down to 16th, is also going for that position. They want that point badly, so all of them pushing to the absolute maximum, trying to gain positions wherever they can. Kryptonite getting quite close to the back of Yossi. He's definitely got some decent straight line speed, and that's no, that's just the Ferrari. Sorry, I thought that was a spin from someone, but no, just TF10's and News, his AI car retired on the side of the circuit there. Thankfully didn't cause any trouble, as sometimes when you do retire in the pit lane, the AI likes to cause a little bit of chaos. Thankfully avoided that, but Yeah, this battle for the midfield is definitely very intense. A lot more intense than the battle between the top five. No one in the top five really switching positions. Obviously, they're on the hard compound attire. Top 9 of 36. There's many, many laps to go and another stint altogether. So I think the drivers in the top five, they're playing a lot more conservatively than the bottom drivers because obviously they know they've got one more stint to go. This isn't the time when you will be making up positions and battling for points because absolutely anything could happen in the pit stops. We could see the order reversed in the top five. That's how crazy it could get. So I do think the undercut is the most powerful strategy at this circuit. So don't be surprised if we see some drivers coming into the pit lane quite early at around lap 20 or maybe even before that for the medium compounded tires. But we're seeing ERT Kieran currently on the back of Shizu Aries, and Yossi has actually gone for the move on Dara into turn number 1, braking very late and getting ahead of the AlphaTauri driver. And now, as I just flick off him, ERT Kieran does make the move on Shizu Aries into turn number 4 and now is ahead of yet another driver. He's got 2.3 seconds up the road to his teammate. Hopefully he can now push on to catch up to the back of the top 5 and get himself into that battle for the lead.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're wondering why I'm laughing, by the way, Aries gave the sign down the straight, just a little wiggle. Kieran did exactly the same about 2 seconds later, right in behind him. And then in the end, Kieran's got through and he's into turn number 4. So if that's not planned, I don't know what is, to be honest. But Kieran's through and he's into 6th. Aries there, up, down into 7th as well. But so far ahead of Ryan and Time, they've got to work together, ideally, to get back within the DRS range of the guys ahead, especially because there's a Haas double stack potentially on the cards for JR, Javi and Kieran, as Dara has spun, coming, I think, through turn number 12. In fact, has he got a puncture? No, he hasn't. I think he's just taken the car very slowly indeed. He's ran out of ERS. I wonder if the car has got rear wing damage, or if he's just gone for a full spin. Coming to the right-hander of it into the pit lane. The speeds nearly into the pit lane. That might be retirement, but we'll have to come back to the action because it is 3 wide, nearly down the straight and towards turn 1. Zolzo trying to find his way past on Ron now. He's through on Kryptonite, certainly. And Zolzo now 2 for 1. Marvellous to the inside line of turn 1. Tries to get the job done, and he does. And Johan's following through on Kryptonite as well. They both have a bit of contact coming through the right-hander at turn 1. Time BB and Ryan are side by side and towards turn 4. Just in the foreground, a shot as well. We're on board with these guys now as he tries to go all the way around the outside at turn 5. Does not want to do the Ron Hall Rasmussen back in PSGL and PC last season, but Ryan there hangs on, and that is how you race around the outside of turn 5 and 6. Great job from Ryan. He's through and he's into 8. Time there in 9, struggling on his debut, but if there's a safety car and it brings everyone together, he might just be there or thereabouts. But a good, solid job from him in 9th position currently, and also Zozo through, as I mentioned, into 12th position as well. Jerry Van Bossel currently holding the lead at 7/10 of a second, bit slidey, coming out of Pavel Tada as I rode on board with him there. Devon there, 41% of EOS, Will Murdoch on 49, Renz on 25, Xavi on 14, so they've just got to use a little bit more, EOS saving potentially for the 2 guys at the bottom end of this train. But Devon and Jerry doing a good job. They're both around 4% within each other in terms of their EOS. Devon now just beginning to apply the pressure, it seems, the first time to Jerry Van Bossel. How will he handle that pressure? We saw it last week, Connell, in China, where he handled the pressure really well. Is he going to handle the pressure twofold here once again? Or is Devon going to be there or thereabouts?
Yeah, I think Jerry Van Bossel definitely handled the pressure very well at China, like you did mention on the hard compound attire. That's when he did lack a little bit of pace, but also, like we saw in China, he was it was like this at the last round. He was on the hard compound attire and he just couldn't pull away from Devon, as we're actually seeing a battle with Zorzo and Johan, as Zorzo goes for the switchback maneuver heading into turn number 6 here and pushing Johan off of the circuit. He's going to try and possibly make a move down the inside. This could be very risky, and Zorzo tries to hold it around the outside, but eventually has to take evasive action and go off of the circuit, and Johan actually got a 3-second time penalty for making that move because he extended the track limit. So very aggressive there between the 2 drivers, but the point I was making about Jerry Van Bossel was he was quite slow on the hards. Devon was able to stay within the DRS when Jerry was on the hards, but once he got onto those medium compound tires, he absolutely flew away, and we could possibly see something similar here today. Maybe he just doesn't feel comfortable on this compounded tires. We now see Tin BB8 as he makes the move on OP Ryan, those 2 switching positions with each other once again, maybe trying to work with each other and use that DRS to catch catch up at 5.8 seconds to
Oh,
Shizu
no.
Aries up the road. Zorzo now on Kryptonite, and he has gotten, or Kryptonite is trying to get past Zorzo. He does make the switchback move out of turn number 3. FBI Dart on the soft compound tires as fast as up. Zorzo defending the inside line into turn number 4. He breaks very late. Kryptonite, though, tries to hang it around the outside. Zorzo perfectly timing his switchback and into turn number 6 and 7 with that inside line. It looks like he might be able to get this move done, but Kryptonite gets the better exit with the more flowing line, and Zorzo eventually has to concede the position there. Kryptonite, and pretty decent for someone who was in the retirement home just a few weeks ago.
Definitely so, and I tell you what, Zozel gave him absolutely no room at all initially, then realised who he was, and he gave him all the room in the world, and that was fantastic racing, I've got to say, between them both. So fantastic that Zozel just picked up a 3-second penalty, so that is karma, I think, hitting him completely there, the Alfa Romeo, on the back of the Red Bull. And do you know what? I think these guys could go at it once again in towards turn number 1, because Zozel's got more ERS than Krypton at this stage. Zozel 5 tenths per second off the back. Gabriel, however, is on the back of Ryan in towards turn number 1, which will come back on board within a second. That battle with Gabriel to the inside line of Ryan, tries to get the job done. Ryan there on the inside line hangs on for position. Johan is through on Ron. That's a very late dive to the inside line. Actually, the Frenchman, he's through and he's into 12, and Zozo has managed to get past Kryptonite. He's putting him back in the retirement home, it seems. He's down there in 15, Ron there on the back in 13th position, doing a fantastic job. Johan there in 12, and everyone in the top 5 still within DRS range of each other as well. But now, you were saying there, a perfect good point, I think, about the set of hard compound tyres. I now think Devon's possibly pushed a little bit too hard on the set of hard compound tyres. The gap's just eking out again. 7 tenths per second coming through the right-hand return number 12 at Fernando's corner. And Jerry Van Bussel into the Ferrasol, he now looks a little bit quicker, I think, lap upon lap than Devon. So it might be the case where the Alfa Romeo has just pushed his tyres a little bit too hard too early. Or is this just good race management from the man in behind, Jerry, who's obviously got the DRS, he's going to catch back up down the straight. It's going to be absolutely in a given that he's going to catch back down the straight. But Devon in second, on the back of Jerry Van Bussel, he's just eking closer again within the DRS, but through the middle and the final sector there, Jerry just began to apply that pressure again on Devon, and so far, that has been so deadly for him, I think, this season in PSGL F2.
Yeah, it definitely has. We've just seen with Jerry time and time again that the further you get into a Grand Prix, just the faster he gets, it seems. The more laps go by, the quicker his lap times get, and it's just harder to keep up with them. Now we're on lap 15 of 36, almost halfway into the Grand Prix, and we're now seeing Jerry Van Bussel. He almost got out of the DRS on the last lap. Now the gap is about 5 tenths as we head through the middle sector. Let's see, is there a significant time gaze? We're now seeing Zorzo being overtaken by Kryptonite into turn 4. I think he absolutely sent it there on the Alfa Romeo. FVR Dara also having a nice little battle with the outplay driver of Luca Kart. They're on the soft compound tire and the medium compound tire, so they're obviously on strategies they don't really want to be on because of unscheduled pit stops. But yeah, this race also, good to mention that it's just been non-stop battling. I think we've had an overtake every single lap of the Grand Prix so far, whether it's been in the top 6 between Kieran and Aries, or even for P14 with Zorzo and Kryptonite. All throughout the field, there's constant battling between everyone and squabbling for positions.
Yeah, definitely. So it's fantastic to watch. And normally Mexico was more of the races. Johan's the first one actually to come in the pit lane. It's one of those races and one of those tracks where overtaking doesn't normally happen in the first half of the race, but this, because the field is so spread out, there are battles absolutely galore. It's a bit like the Formula E race yesterday in Berlin, where it was absolutely hell for leather. There was about 15 cars going side by side, coming to the left-hand return number 5 at the attack zone. And this is exactly what we've got here, of course, in Mexico. Mexico, of course, being a Formula E track as well. We are going to be seeing, though, the first pit stops, I think, making truer very soon indeed. Johan, by the way, I think responded more to Darrett and Luca Kart than anything else. He's came out well ahead of those guys coming out of the pit lane. The overcut is more powerful than the undercut around here as well, if the strategy is right, which I think some of them potentially could go for that overcut, could go 2-3 laps longer than the guys ahead and behind. So that means, potentially, if Jerry Van Bussel comes in the pit lane, say, for example, this lap around, which he isn't, Devon isn't either, but if that was a little bit of an example, Jerry Van Bussel would have came in the pit lane, overcut, Devon would have pushed 2 or 3 laps longer. He would have been on 2 or 3 lap pressure tyres, which is about 12% tyre wear over those 3 laps in comparison, as Dara's picking the 3-second penalty further down the field. But Jerry Van Bussel leading the way. Devon there in second, Will Murdoch in third, and Dava, unfortunately, is spun, in fact, coming through the left-hander of turn number 9 through the SA section, so that's unfortunate for him. Looking through the comments, by the way, hope you are doing very, very well in this, on this fine Friday? On this fine Monday. Goodness me, PSGL's not coming on Fridays all of a sudden. But PSGL is live on Mondays, and of course F1 and F3 is live in 15 minutes time. So if you want to catch Evan Dalton for F3, Jessica Ball and Aidan Carter for F1, you can do that. We'll take you redirected straight to that live stream, which I forgot to put on at the start of the stream, which I hope you guarantee is going to be very, very good as we get towards the end of this race. Ren's picked up a first 3-second penalty. Dava's retired in the pit lane, must have picked up some sort of damage that doesn't force him to continue on. And in the end, the FVR man, Evan Dalton, if you want Dava back, you can have him.
Yeah, there you go. Very unlucky for my fellow Irishman. But yeah, just a disappointing race from him. Obviously, a big opportunity for him to have his first race in F2 this season. But sadly, just a little bit of unluckiness and a slight bit of inconsistency sees him falling down to P17 and then retiring from the sessions. The F3 man won't get the dream result that he maybe would have wanted. Meanwhile, his championship rival, BB8, doing very nicely for himself up in P8. And we are now starting to see a lot more people come into the pit lane as Yossi has a nice little Tokyo drift as he heads into the boxes. But yeah, we're seeing a lot more people come onto the medium compounded tires as Johan is also on the medium. So we'll have to see how this undercut works out for them. These guys obviously going for a super aggressive undercut. I think usually you start boxing off of the hards onto the mediums around lap 20, 21, somewhere around that. And yeah, these guys have boxed. Obviously, Johan boxed on lap 16 of 36. So he's trying to take these medium compound tires for 20 laps. That's an extremely aggressive undercut, and I think his tires will be absolutely completely worn and have fallen off a cliff around that point by the end of the Grand Prix. But the top guys, they're still staying out. Jerry Van Bussel is coming through the stadium section. We'll see. Is he going to come in for an undercut? I think Jerry Van Bussel likes that overcut strategy. Although, as I say that, he now pulls into the pit lane for the medium compound of tire. And he's the only driver in the top 5 and the top 6 for that matter to come into the pit lane as Shizu Aries also boxes for the medium. So Jerry Van Bussel, we saw him go for the overcut at China. This time, he's going for more of an undercut strategy.
I think it is, and I think this is actually perfect from his perspective. He's judged the race really well to this point. I think he's going to try and get Devon outside of slipstream range and outside of DRS range. That's what I think his plan is here from the TF man. But I think he's put in a little bit too early, if I've got to be really critical of him. I think he's put in a little bit too early, and those medium compounded tyres, once they get 12 or 13 laps into their stint, they're going to be really beginning to wear away. They're going to be at around 50-55% tyre wear. So he's got to manage those extra few laps that he's going to do on those. And that's going to be, what, an extra 6 laps that he's going to do? He is a very good tyre management driver. So don't get me wrong, he will probably get to the end of the race, but it's just a little bit concerning for me, personally, that he has just came into the pit lane, I think, a lap or two a little bit too early, as Devon, Will Murdoch, Renz and Javi are now putting us completely in terms of what I was saying a little bit earlier on, in terms of this overcut strategy. The overcut, as I say, is more powerful than the undercut. Once you get in, Devon responds into the pit lane, as does Will Murdoch, as does Renz, as does Javi. They're all into the pit lane as they come in towards the final couple of corners. Kieran's the one staying out though, and he will now inherit the race lead as a result. But where is Devon going to come out in comparison to Jerry Van Bussel? Jerry Van Bussel is not the first McLaren, he's just came in the pit lane. He's the second McLaren coming out of Peloton now, and Devon is on the pit lane exit, and do you know what? I think he's actually got this. Devon now coming out of the pit lane, Jerry Van Bussel is there, coming into camera angle, and he's ahead. And now, with Devon being, what, half a second behind, look at that gap. A second already, without even breaking the DRS. Ron's now getting into the Javi train as well. Javi now under pressure from Kryptonite, and Kryptonite's actually through and he's into 9th position, so they're dropping further down the field, especially from Javi. I feel sorry for him because he's now got traffic ahead of him out on track. He's got Zozo behind him, he's got Aries 2.5 seconds behind him as well. Zozo tries to get the job done on Javi, but in the end he has to warm up the tyres. You can see him weaving down in towards turn number 4. The fact that he has to weave means they're very cold in terms of the tyres, and look at the coldness of Devon's tyres, 1.5 seconds. Jerry Van Bussel, what did I say 2 laps ago? He was going to get him out of slipstream range, going to get him out of DRS range, and now in the end he has, but at what cost?
Yeah, what cost indeed, because he obviously must be very confident in his pace because he's completely depleted his battery. It was on about 0% as he head into turn number 1. So he's got absolutely no ERS to play with. So if Devin does manage to get back into DRS, he is going to be left completely defenseless. But Jerry Van Bussel is obviously doing this because he's confident that he can keep Devin outside of the DRS even without any battery. So Jerry Van Bussel, well, we're seeing it now because he's that's the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, a 17.4 on the medium compounded tires, only about 2.5 seconds slower than his pole time that he set in qualifying. So very quick time on the medium compound of tires. But Jerry Van Bussel, yeah, he must be confident that he can keep Devin outside the DRS even without the battery. But Devin's in a similar position because he's also got below 10% ERS. Will Murdoch in the same boat as yeah, all of them struggling for the ERS levels. So I think Jerry Van Bussel, I think he's definitely played this right. And as long as he can keep up a good pace for the rest of the Grand Prix, he's looking likely to win this one. But who knows? Anything could happen. Devin could definitely find himself within that DRS as we still have 15 laps of racing to go.
Yeah, 15 laps of racing to go, and I'll tell you something as well. Do not rule Aries out of a potential podium. They're in 8th position. He's behind Zozo. He's stuck in a little bit of traffic with the Alfa Romeo ahead. But he was within DRS range on Javi on that lap around. He's now out on because obviously Zozo's now costing him and hemorrhaging him a bit of time. But Aries there in 8th position. He is doing a phenomenal job, and he's actually caught, what, nearly 2 seconds on the back of Xavi just from the pit stops alone. He's doing a phenomenal job. If he can keep that pace up, which I don't think he will, if he can keep that pace up, though, as Zozo now gets out of the way, gives him a bit of free DRS as well, just to boot. I think Xavi didn't, so that is Aries gaining extra speed down the straight, and that now just might put him within a second of the back of Xavi. But there, in 6th position, there's Kieran coming out in 7th as well. Time there in 8th, doing a solid job further down the field. But Will Murdoch now, all of a sudden, on the back of Devon, 4/10 of a second. At this moment in time, Xavi will not be good enough for a potential podium finish. He hasn't got a 3-second penalty as compared to Will Murdoch. It's very late on the brakes in towards turn number 4 on the back. They're all the penalties, by the way, just to run through quickly, as Ron and Krypton are having a private battle further down the field. Zozo actually just coming out the pit lane behind them. Will Murdoch on 3, Renz on 3, Kieran on 3, Johan on 3, Yossi on 6, Kryptonite on 3, and then Zozo on 3 and Lupicot on 9 seconds worth of penalties at this stage in the race, with Will Murdoch on the back of Devon trying to look to try and get the job done. But Jerry now, as is always the case, I think, with Jerry so far this season, he's checked out once again, 2.2 seconds. He's only pulling out 2 or 3/10 a second a lap. That's enough, though, to get him out of slipstream range, get him out of DRS range. And with Will Murdoch now on the back of him and having double the amount of EOS than Devon, I'd be very, very concerned if I was in Devon's shoes right now.
Yeah, I definitely would. Obviously, he has got that big pressure from Murdoch and Renz behind. The only problem with those two drivers is they both have time penalties, so even if they do get ahead of Devon, he will still be able to finish ahead of them. So he's in quite an uncomfortable position because he has to worry about Will Murdoch and Renz potentially overtaking them, but I think he's pretty confident that he can secure P2 in this Grand Prix. I think P1 is now pretty much off of the table as Kryptonite sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Very impressive to see from him. A 17.3, absolutely rapid from the Red Bull driver, and that's because he is trying to pull away from Ron as much as possible because he has got a time penalty where Shizu Ron does not, so he needs to make sure that he can pull out a gap. As Zorzo, another 3-second time penalty for the Alfa Romeo driver, and yeah, you can see there's so many 3-second time penalties up and down the field. And yeah, I did expect that coming into this round, especially with the amount of invalidations that we saw in qualifying. It's just looking that so many drivers are struggling with these track limits. And yeah, this race has definitely shown that. But all the drivers without time penalties are doing very nicely for themselves, especially Javi there in P5. If he can just push a little bit harder, gain a little bit more time, I think he can get P4 if he can get within 3 seconds of Renz. And maybe if he finds some extra bit of pace in these final couple of laps, he could even get onto the podium. But that would take a lot of pushing and a lot of extra pace. Meanwhile, the gap at the front, worth noting, 2.1 seconds between Jerry Van Bussel. That means the gap has actually gone down by about a tenth. So maybe Jerry Van Bussel not as quick as we thought. He has got 1 lap older medium compound tires, but right now Devin doing an absolutely brilliant job to keep a consistent pace and really not losing too much time to Jerry Van Bussel as it stands.
Luca Kart's just gone for a spin on the other side of the track, coming through the right-hand with turn number 12. I think he's avoided the wall. Just looking on board. He's running neutral, so I think he's going to go fastest lap attempt, then come in the pit lane, which I wouldn't blame him if he does. He is literally burning all that battery. Something I've never seen done before. Let's be honest, in a race, 24 laps in, Luca Kart's now going for a flying lap onto lap 24 to set the fastest lap and then probably retire in the pit lane. You see some funny things in commentary. I've been doing it 10 years. That's the first time I've seen that around here in Mexico. Let's be honest with that. Devon there in second and Will Murdoch in third. Currently doing a fantastic job. Luca Kart going for that qualifying lap. I wish I could commentate you through it, but we can't because there is a battle for second going on at this stage. Johan's picked up a 3-second penalty further down the field as well. He's running in 11th position and actually got an undercut, I think, on Yossi and Krypton, if I'm not mistaken. So he's through in that 11th position, doing a solid job. He's just on the outskirts of the points at this stage, along with Gabriel and Ryan, who are going to be having that fight, I think, for 9th, 10th, and 11th as the race progresses on. Jerry Van Bussel, though, leading the way. The gap is 2 seconds, and Devon's just beginning to start using up that battery slightly. Gap is closing. I wouldn't be concerned if I was in Jerry's shoes right now, because I'd realise to myself I've got a 2-second buffer, basically. But Jerry doesn't want to get too confident. He doesn't want to get too cocky, I think. Especially with a guy like Devon on the back of him. Devon excels around here at a track like Mexico because he is on the wheel. Wheel is better, I think, than the controller around here. I don't think there's anybody on a controller, by the way, if you're going to ask me that question here in PSGL F2. But Devon there, it's almost as if Jerry wants him to get within a second of him and then try and pull away again. He's not using up any he's using up battery, but he's not using up battery in the thing. And now coming out the final corner, he's using up battery again. So I'm literally perplexed as to what Jerry's doing out in front, whereas in Devon's shoes, he's using battery and he's catching. So Devon is just beginning to close in slightly. As I say, I wouldn't be concerned if I was in Jerry's shoes right now, but it's something to note as we go forward, especially for the next 5 or 6 laps. If that gap closes within a second, Jerry may be in trouble from Devon.
Yeah, and I think that could be why he's going full send with the battery. Obviously, he could save up a little bit, allow Devon to get into that DRS and then have a defense when Devon launches an attack. But I think Jerry's train of thought here is, well, if Devon gets into my DRS, the race for me is going to be pretty much over. So he's using absolutely any sort of battery, any sort of tires that he has left to push as hard as he possibly can. His main objective at this point is just to keep Devon out of that DRS. But it looks like Devon, and we haven't seen this in quite a while, but Devon, I think, has the better pace than Jerry Van Bussel. He's slowly gaining on the race leader, and even if he gains by a 10th a lap, he is going to take that race lead because we've got 10 laps of racing to go. So he's still got so many more laps, so many more turns to gain time in, and Devon has brought that gap down from about 2.3 seconds to 1.8 seconds. So slowly but surely gaining on the race leader, but he needs to keep up this pace as some laps I think Jerry is slightly faster, other it's Devon who's got the advantage. But all the meanwhile, Will Murdoch is in P3. He's got about 50% ERS and he's only about 4 tenths behind the man in P2. So even though Devon is pushing really hard to get into the DRS of Will Murdoch might end up overtaking him and then getting into the DRS of Jerry Van Bussel because he's got so much battery. Meanwhile, Aries and Kieran are battling side by side through turn number 5. Contact between the Haas and the Aston Martin, but Shazoo Aries comes out on top in that particular engagement, and he's now up into P6 and only 1.2 seconds behind Javi. So we might not only see a battle for the race lead, but also we're seeing one emerge for P5 in this Grand Prix.
Yeah, Javi doing a fantastic job, I've got to say, from being, I think, a reserve and getting a little bit of criticism as well on social media because he apparently has been noted as potentially cheating within time trial. And I can say, because he's on PlayStation, he probably won't be cheating. This is just pure pace that he has suddenly found. And the Aventus Racing team, I think, should be proud of that. I think he is showing why he is PSGL F2 standard, sending the doubters completely to their deaths And I've got to say, Ari's there in 6th and Kieran in 7th are really not keeping up with them at this stage. Xavi is doing a good job. He's obviously not keeping up with the pace of Renz and Will Murdoch and Devon just because of the DRS scene ahead of him as Kieran looks the inside line and turn 1 on Aries. I did say watch out for Aries. Didn't say watch out for Kieran. Watch out for 3-second penalty though for Kieran as he just picked that up coming out of turn number 1 and 2. But he is now on the back out of 3 and on the run towards turn number 4. Dummies into the left-hand side. Just use a bit better battery to get alongside. Aries though was still there on the outside line. This is a bit of an aggressive battle, I've got to say, through 4 and 5. And in the end, Kieran doesn't realise where Aries is. Aries there on the right-hand side. It was good awareness there from Kieran. If not, if he didn't back out there would have been contact through turn number 5. Absolutely guaranteed. Great driving from Kieran, great awareness. Possibly blind awareness at that as well. Kieran there on the back of Ari's 6th and 7th position. He's still on the back. Oh my word, he's nearly gone for half spin coming out of the SA section through turn number 11. And Kieran is hanging on not only to the back of Ari's, but hanging on to his car by a very grim thread.
Yeah, Kieran's through turn number 5 there. He was obviously ahead at the apex, but he knew that Aries wasn't going to give him an inch of space. So it was either make contact with the Aston Martin or back out and live to fight another day. And it looks like he's made the right choice because he's going to make a nice and simple pass down this pit straight with the power of DRS being very powerful. And he's going to even get a second helping of it down this next straight on the run into turn number 4. So this could help Kieran pull away slightly from the Aston Martin. So Kieran has definitely played that very nicely as Aries does not get a very good exit out of turn 3. He's also lacking on the ERS side of things, where ERT Kieran has the advantage on that front. So ERT Kieran putting himself in a very good position. He's also got 3 of that fresher tires because he did go for quite the overcut relative to everyone in the field. He's got the youngest tires out of everyone, excluding Zorzo, who's currently down in P15. So Kieran went for the aggressive overcut, and it seems it's actually worked out because he was ahead of Aries before the pit stops. He's now back ahead of Aries, and he's got fresher tires than his teammate ahead, who's only 1.3 seconds up the road. So ERT Kieran, he's played this pretty nicely from before the pit stops.
Yeah, he's playing an absolute blinder, I think, this race there in 6th position. He's doing a fantastic job. He's on the back of his teammate, as you mentioned, 1.2 seconds. Now, I know for fine fact Kieran and Xavi are probably not in the same parties. There might be a bit of contact between the Hasses, and I would not be surprised if that does happen and that is the case. But Jerry Van Bussel leads the way. 2 seconds the gap over Devon, with Will Murdoch there in 3rd, Renz there in 4th, Xavi there in 5th, Kieran in 6th, Aries, Tyne, Ryan and Gabrielle ran off the top 10. Everything has spaced itself out very nicely indeed. Further down the field, Johan, Yossi, Krypton, Ron and Zozo, top 15, are still continuing on. And Will Murdoch, now I'm going to ask you a question and put you in Will Murdoch's shoes right now, Connell. Will Murdoch, 73% of ERA, 75% of ERA actually coming out of turn number 6. Devon there, 13%. If you were in Will Murdoch's shoes right now, what would you do? Sit and wait in behind or go for the overtake?
I mean, it's really hard to judge because obviously he's got that 3-second time penalty. He's comfortably in P3. He's got the DRS of Devon ahead, which means Renz probably isn't going to be able to overtake him. I think, and even if he does end up overtaking Devon, he might not be able to pull out a 3-second gap because obviously Jerry is only just a little bit up the road. So we'd have to overtake both Devon and Jerry and then pull out a 3 seconds of Devon. And in the process, he might accidentally pull Devon into the DRS of Jerry Van Bussel. So yeah, it's very difficult. I think Will Murdoch, he saves up all the ERS at this point. I think he is going to absolutely send it come the end of the Grand Prix. Whether he'll be able to gain a position or not, only time will tell, but we've only got 5 laps, so he's got to act soon if he wants to get ahead of Devon and Jerry Van Bussel and possibly get P2 in this Grand Prix.
Yeah, he's been a bit circumspect, to be honest. I mean, if I was in his shoes, I'd be doing exactly what he's doing right now and just sitting, waiting behind on Devon, apply that pressure, keep Devon literally under pressure every single corner, every single lap. That's what I would be doing if I was in Will Murdoch's shoes right now. Thankfully, we're not in Will Murdoch's shoes right now. Otherwise, you won't be seeing us in the comment box for the rest of the season. But Will is doing a solid job, and I know Oxide Nova, who's one of his friends, of course, from the league race, in the comments gone. But I did see him a little bit earlier on saying Will Murdoch the GOAT, I think it was, or Will Murdoch for the win, I think was his comment. Hopefully Oxide's still there. Will Murdoch is doing a solid job, I've got to say, there in third. He did start us in one of my leagues as well, which is absolutely unbelievable. He's obviously been part of the Gran Turismo series, the esports series there on Gran Turismo in real life. He's been selling, I think, his pedals potentially as well a little bit later on. Thrustmaster T130, I think it is, with the setup for the full on-board setup with what Will Murdoch was showing there on Twitter at least. But he's there in third, and if he has got his current setup, I will keep it, as Kieran is going to keep 5th position, I think. On the back of Xavi, going to pull to the inside line in towards turn 1, down the straight, and Xavi has got absolutely zero response to his teammate, and that is Kieran through, and he's into 5th, and he's managed that race very well indeed. He'll only begin to pull away now out on track there in 5th. But the main battle, the main pursuing battle, is in 2nd position. Devon, Will Murdoch, Ren, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at the minute. Devon gets 2nd, Will Murdoch will get 3rd, Renz will get 4th, no matter what happens out on track, unless there's a safety car, which in this race, and judging by how everyone has acted so far, that is very unlikely, I think, towards the end of the final 5 laps of this race. Yossi picks up a 3-second penalty, one on the back of Kryptonite as well, and actually he's going to go for the move, I think, here on the back of the Red Bull to the outside line and towards turn number 4. And the Aston Martin, Krypton's went deep, and that is how you sell a dummy. That is sent straight back to the retirement home from Krypton. Ron there through, and he's into 13, and that is how you outdo the head steward, Kryptonite. Goodness me, he's been sent to an early grave with that one.
He has indeed. Ron playing him like a fiddle through turn number 4 and managing to get himself up into P13. Brilliant job from Ron. Kryptonite just broke way too late coming into that turn number 4 and was left completely defenseless for turn number 5, and Ron was just able to swoop up and collect the position. But yeah, it was nice that you mentioned that 0 safety cars in this Grand Prix. We've had 3 retirements, but every single one has been in the pit lane, so there's not been any big collisions that have caused a retirement throughout this Grand Prix. So even though we've seen a lot of wheel banging between the drivers, everyone has kept it pretty clean, as we're now seeing Zorzo go for the move on Kryptonite, who's looking to possibly finish last place in this Grand Prix, but he's going to send it into turn 1. Doesn't break too late this time, and manages to just about keep it on circuit, but he's still behind Zorzo, who's going to get the DRS once again down this straight. But we obviously thought Devon might have had a little bit more pace than we were leading on to, and he just hasn't been able to deliver on that. Jerry Van Bussel has kept that gap at 1.8 seconds for the last couple of laps, and yeah, Jerry Van Bussel, it's not the dominant victory that we're used to, but the fact of the matter is Devon is outside of that DRS, so Jerry Van Bussel has done a very good job at keeping up a good pace for this Grand Prix. But you can see one position behind Devon, Will Murdoch, on 90% ERS. So all he's been doing for the past couple of laps is just saving up his ERS. He's felt no need to push at all. And yeah, I think he's doing. He's going to probably follow your advice and just stick behind Devon for the rest of the Grand Prix. Secure a podium in F2. I think it would be his first of the season, so I'm sure he's just happy to get himself up into a top 3 position. So good job from Will Murdoch managing his race very, very nicely at this stage.
Yeah, definitely so. Will Murdoch has not been on the podium, you're right. He has not been on the podium. His best finish actually was last time out in China, where he finished 4th position. So Will Murdoch is doing a fantastic job. China, and again here in Mexico, as I say, he doesn't need to go for this move, unless Devon picks up a 3-second penalty ahead of him, which I think is looking unlikely, given how Devon's been taking his track limits. I think he's been absolutely fine. So Will Murdoch there now has to put Devon under pressure. Jerry Van Bussel all of a sudden just beginning to come back slightly. 1.6 seconds. I'm not getting concerned whatsoever. It could be the fabulous 5-timer here for Jerry Van Bussel. Could be going for the fabulous 7, as Frankie Dettori did back in 1997 at Ascot Racecourse, not knowing what anybody is probably on about there. For it's horse racing. Will Murdoch, though, now using up all of that battery. He's actually going to go now for the move onto the penultimate lap of the race. No safety cars at all, but Will Murdoch doesn't care. He is now doing he's into 2nd position, puts the pressure on Devon, and now what will happen here? Because if he pulls 3 seconds away from Renz, tries to put the pressure on Devon, there is a big possibility that Will could actually even take this race win still. 1.2 seconds. He's on the back of Jerry Van Bussel. Jerry Van Bussel is all of a sudden treading on a little bit of water. This race is all of a sudden getting fascinating. And speaking of fascinating, there's a 2x2 Noah's Ark. Zolzo's in the pit lane, pretty much turning towards turn number 1. Yossi now passing him. Ron going for the move as well. Don't know what's going on with this battle. Kryptonite's involved in this as well. It's a 4-way battle for the wooden spoon. Zolzo, Yossi, Ron, and Krypton. It looks like it's going to go Krypton's way, I think, at this stage. But Yossi on the back of Zolzo looks to the outside line in towards turn number 4. And the JL man is ahead of the QRT man just about, but he's gone way too deep on the brakes, tries to defend the inside line. Zolzo tries to pull off the Ronha line to the outside line, tries to get the job done again. They're still side by side. They're Noah's Ark through the right-hander at turn number 6. It's absolutely unbelievable racing between them both. Zolzo now ahead of Yossi. Yossi's still there through turn number 7. Brilliant racing between them both. This, I may remind you, is the 12th position out on track. And this is actually, they're going for the podiums. This is unbelievable racing between the lot of them. Kryptonite is 3 on Ron. Ron all of a sudden has just been bullied out of 2 positions. Will Murdoch all of a sudden is on the back of Jerry. Where on earth has this came from? Coming through the right-hander at turn number 3. Final lap of the race. Jerry Van Bussel leads. Will Murdoch in second. But Jerry Van Bussel's in trouble here. Here comes Will Murdoch to the inside line to try and take it on track. But on the penalties, if he puts Jerry with a 3-second penalty, that might just lead Will Murdoch to actually win this race and then force Devon into a bit of full sense behind. But Jerry Van Bussel hangs on from Will Murdoch in second. As I say, he doesn't need to go for the race win, but that racer's instinct is going to come out. Jerry Van Bussel has had to work hard for this one. This is going to be the fabulous 5-timer as long as he doesn't spin. Coming through the SA section and through the final couple of corners, Jerry Van Bussel is going to take the race win as he now comes in towards the Ferrosol for the final time through Fernandez corner at turn number 12. Will Murdoch is still there, still trying to hassle the back of the Dutchman, but the Dutchman now through the final couple of corners, the confetti already flies as Jerry Van Bussel, the championship leader, the dominant championship leader, rounds the final corner. The fabulous 5-timer for Jerry Van Bussel, he takes the race win. Devon there in second, Will Murdoch in the end, an absolute honourable performance there in third, did a stunning job. Ren's in fourth, Xavi there in fifth, Kieran there in sixth, Ari's spinning across the line in the background there in seventh, Tyne there in eighth, and actually position changes with the penalties. Ryan up to 7th, Gabriel 8th, Tyne in 9th, Ari's there in 10th, Johan there in 11th, Zozo will finish across the line in 12th, and Yossi, Krypton and Ron, that battle's still ongoing in towards Peril Tata through turn number 15 and 16, and in the end the Red Bull just about sliding his way. Kryptonite in the end is in the relegation zone. He hacks into the back of the Alfa Romeo as well. That's a given penalty, I think, from the head steward. But Krypton in the end is 14th ahead of one driver at the back end of the field. My word, what a race in Mexico. Might be one of the races of the season, I think. Brilliant racing throughout. And it is that man again. You believed in him, the ones that voted for him. What was 56% of you, including me. Fabulous 5 for Jerry Van Bussel. He takes the race win out on track in Mexico and looks honestly unstoppable.
5 wins in a row in PSGL F2. That's an achievement that not many drivers have achieved. Jerry Van Bussel, absolutely brilliant from the McLaren driver, and it was probably the hardest he's had to battle for a race win out of his previous 4, but he still gets the race win out there today and continues to extend his lead in the championship. It's just 16 points after 16 points after 16 points. Jerry Van Bussel, it's a familiar sight, pole position and the Grand Prix win for the McLaren driver. His championship rival Devon minimizing the damage though, making sure that he got into P2 and onto the podium, and I think he is actually going to overtake Talent Factory Lars as well because of that, who sadly couldn't make it today. Will Murdoch, though, after trying to overtake Jerry Van Bussel, couldn't quite get past him, and at the end of the day still gets into P3 and his first podium of the season. The Mercedes driver, I'm sure, will have a big grin on his face after that one. Juventus Racing Rennes finishing P4. Brilliant performance from the Alpine driver after qualifying P2. Javi finishing in P5. ERT Kieran and managing to finish P6 with OP Ryan up in P7. Gabriel, after his podium last time out, finishing in P8. BB8 in P9. Aries in P10. Johan in P11. Ron in P12. Zorzo in P13. Kryptonite in P15. And then Kryptonite in P14. And Yazzie rounding off the grid in P15. And then sadly, Luca Kart, Nuth, and the F3 driver of Dara retiring from the session, but all of which were in the pit lane, so no major crashes in that Grand Prix. But what an exciting race that was. So much battling throughout the race, and a lot of it was extremely impressive to see. So if you had to pick one driver of the day at this circuit for round number 8 of a PSGL, who would you have to choose?
Will Murdoch. Will Murdoch, I think, might be the man, certainly, I think, that takes driver of the day for me. He was saying there in the chat, he's going to be joining us for an interview in just a second, so you will hear it from him. But in the end, Will Murdoch, I think, drove a fantastic race. He drove an absolute solid drive. That 3-second penalty, he is absolutely hitting himself. Honestly, I'm sure he is hitting himself right now, because without that 3-second penalty, he could have potentially won that race. And that 3-second penalty put him back to third. What could have it been for Will? But in the end, yeah, he will deserve driver of the day. And we are going to hopefully get him in. I don't know why it didn't let him in the first occasion, but he is now here, and we will hopefully get interviews as well from Devon and from Jerry Van Bussel as well. They have been asked to attend the interviews if they do want to, of course. But we now can speak to the man in P3. It is Mr. Will Murdoch. And Will, it's a case of what could have it been? That 3-second penalty comes back to bite you on the back end.
Yeah, I'm fairly disappointed with myself. I mean, I didn't really do any race practice, so I hadn't actually done any laps on the medium, so that'll be my excuse for this week. I'll have a new one next week probably. But I was fairly happy with my pace. Yeah, there's not really much else to say. I thought I'd just try and save ERS, and then I didn't really expect Jerry to be that slow at the end. So I was like, I'll have a go, just see what happens. But he held on to it. I think he was probably. It seems to me like he was running fairly high wings, which was why I ripped up to the back of him on the last lap. But yeah, he did a good job at the end of the day, and that's why he basically is already F2 champion probably.
Yeah, as I said there in commentary, he looks unstoppable, I think, at this point. But you were the man that nearly stopped him. You were the man that nearly took the race win out on track. As I say, though, P3, I think you should be absolutely delighted. Given how you were saving up that ERS a little bit later on in the race, you were behind Devon for the majority of that. And we were wondering, 90%, and I even asked Connell this, 90% of ERS, what would you do in this situation? You decided to wait in behind, go for the penultimate lap of the race. Did you feel that you could have had more ERS going on to the final lap to try and challenge Jerry a little bit more?
Well, I feel like if anything, I probably used a bit too much going past Devon. But I didn't really I didn't really expect to gain on Jerry in sector 2. That was probably the main thing. I also didn't expect to sort of go catch up to him as much as I did on the last lap going down the main straight. So I think if I could have done anything differently, I probably would have waited until the second straight and then just absolutely ripped my ARS there and just see what happens. But yeah, I mean P3 is still really good. I don't even remember the last time I was on the podium, to be honest. But yeah, it's been a while. So yeah.
It has been a while. It's been 8 rounds, I think. The last time you were on the podium, I think it was last season, if I'm not mistaken. It was definitely at some point last season. I forgot what race because there's been so many in the off season as apart from that. But in the end, P3 for me out on track. A fantastic job. Connell, any questions for Will?
Yeah, one I definitely have is you've been slowly creeping your way up the standings. Obviously, you got P4 last time out, this time getting P3. Can we maybe expect more performances like this for the final 3 rounds of the season?
Well, I don't know what tracks. What are the next tracks?
I think it's Hungary, Saudi Arabia, and Abu Dhabi, if I'm not mistaken.
Hungary, Saudi Arabia, Brazil.
Brazil?
Hungary, maybe. Saudi Arabia, not a chance. It's the worst track I've ever seen be created. Brazil, maybe. But I mean, it's not really going to be my priority because of Gran Turismo and stuff like that restarting properly. So I'll probably put a lot of effort into that. Plus, I've got work and exams and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm happy just doing like an hour's practice and just turning up for this and just. I mean, I showed that I don't really need a lot of practice today. So, but yeah,
Well, brilliant job on your podium. Make sure you enjoy it, and thank you very much for coming to this interview.
thank you very much.
You are very welcome indeed. I was going to ask another question actually, and that is, I'm not sure if you've sworn to secrecy like the F1 Esports challenges are. How's the preparations going for Gran Turismo?
Well, they brought out new physics like 2 or 3 weeks before the main season starts, which is the worst decision I've ever seen in my life. The BOP is rubbish, and they delayed the Olympics thing by 2 weeks. So no one really knows what's going on, but we're obviously still going to do it because we get to like travel the world and that. But yeah,
Yeah, it will be fantastic. I'm sure. Good luck on that. Congratulations, of course, on the P3 tonight, and go and enjoy your evening.
thank you very much.
You are very welcome indeed. And that rounds us off, I think, our interviews. Jerry Van Bussel, unfortunately, has said he's got WR Tier 3. I like the priorities, I've got to be honest, from our guys here in PSGL F2. Straight on for another race. I think he's engineering there, if I'm not mistaken, WR Tier 3 on the Xbox. So that is, I think, fantastic. And hopefully it's going to be a good race there from that perspective. Looking through the calendar as well, Connell, of course, we go through to next week. It is Hungary. Drivers are going to be hungry for success. I'm going to be even hungrier, I think, after this commentary has ended. But Hungary there, ran down on the championship. It's a track for overtaking. It's a track as well for good fighting out on track. We could see a similar race as what we've seen in Mexico, I think.
Yeah, we definitely could. I mean, Hungary, as some of the real life drivers like to call it, is the Monaco without walls. It's a super tricky circuit with so many turns that can catch you out so easily. There's some raised curbs on that circuit that can send you spinning, and really all around it's just a super difficult circuit. And only two DRS zones being on the main straight, and well, the straight after that, after turn 1 and 2, and it's also a really high downforce circuit, and the only place you really see moves are into turn number 1. Occasionally, you can see them into the chicane of turn number 7, but apart from that, yeah, it's a super tricky circuit to overtake at. Hopefully, we do see some good battling, though, as we have seen at pretty much every single round this season. Doesn't matter what circuit we're at, the drivers always love to put on a show. So hopefully, Hungary does put on a good show, but I think we could see possibly some drivers doing a little better than usual, because that circuit just takes out so much in your consistency. If you make one single mistake, if you go spinning, if you lose even the tiniest bit of track position, you're going to end up losing so much time. So I think consistency is absolutely key at the Hungarian circuit, and I'm sure it will provide a good race. And obviously the third final round of the season, we're getting very close to determining our champion, but as Will Murdoch mentioned, most of the F2 drivers pretty much know that Jerry Van Bussel has wrapped up this championship, but who knows? We got 3 rounds left. Tom Factory Lars and Devin are both very talented drivers, and maybe, just maybe, they could battle Jerry Van Bussel for that championship.
Yeah, FEO, I think need Yokum on the case. I think in terms of their engineering, certainly with Devon there in second. Talent Factory have done an awesome job, I think, with Jerry. The 5 rounds of the champion, the last 5 rounds have been all 5 wins. He's taken the fastest lap on that as well. An absolute unbelievable driver. And as I say, if he's not in F1 Esports Challengers next year, I would be very, very surprised, because that kid is going to go a very, very much long way, I think, certainly as we look forward to challenges. I'm even talking about challenges in 2024. Challenges is still going on, of course. If you do want to catch that on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's the Xbox guys tomorrow. Then there's the PS guys on Wednesday, Black Box and Brothers featuring a part of that lineup, I believe, as well. And then on Thursday, it is the PC guys. So you can tune in for F1 Esports Challenges. You can also tune in as well for F3 and F1. That is currently live for PSGL. Evan Dalton taking you through the action, of course, for F3 alongside Brendan. And then commentalist, of course, Aidan Carter. And the queen of commentary, Miss Jessica Ball, taking you through the action, of course, for PSF1. Hopefully that all goes well. I think they're ending qualifying now, so we are going to get straight to the action there for F1, and I will redirect you there in a second. A big thank you to Mr. Connell Moore for joining me in the comment box. You can at least see me this week. The light in my room is quite forgiving tonight, luckily. It is going to be getting even lighter in my room, so I can promise you that you are going to see me much more clear as we get forward into the final 3 rounds of the championship. But that ends us off very nicely indeed here from Mexico City in Mexico. We go to Hungary next week, and hopefully, are we even going to dare and say Jerry Van Bussel's going to do a 6-timer? Who knows? Who knows? But thank you so much for watching. We'll get you over to F1 very shortly indeed. For myself and from Connell, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.
This broadcast was brought to you by GT Omega, proudly supporting PSGL. This